built up too much that it's going to be hard not for Kittle to not have at least 2 to 3 guys on him, like on every play. You got to be like shading and covering him in every regard, even though they got better on offensive line and he's going to be able to get out in space and maybe catch some more passes and not have to stay in and chip every once in a while too. He's going to be able to do more things, but that attention has to be on him fully because that wide receiving group in San Francisco is not good.
I think it really speaks to I think that it gets confused as how I feel about George Kittle based on the fact that I love Travis Kelce. Is I think they're both incredible pass catchers. And I think what comes to the factor that Kittle's so good is that he can stay back in and chip and then still make a 15-yard gain catching a 3-yard pass. I think that's just incredible. As where, Kelce might have that same 15-yard pass, but it's likely an 11-yard catch with 4 yards after the catch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot more pieces that you're going to have to pay attention to in Kansas City. People are going to have to be spying to make sure Mahomes doesn't run. They're going to have to be making sure they double cover Hill on the outside, or right. They got to make sure they double cover the wide receiving core too. And San Francisco, you're just not going to have that this year. When San Francisco's wide receivers made a play last year, it was kind of really unexpected, and I think this year it's going to be even more of a drop off.
I think at least
I'm not here for Debo slander.
I think at least
he's injured, so he doesn't count.
I think at least fantasy wise, when you think about things for me, is I would keep Kelce ahead of Kittle because in that red area, as the coaches call it, everything within the 20, but more specifically the 10, San Francisco's likely to run it as where, Kelce's that option because they have nobody but Kelce who's a red zone option because you have a bunch of, fast guys who aren't necessarily going to go out and win that 50-50 ball from Mahomes.
And I really did come away very impressed with Deebo Samuel. Just watching a lot of San Francisco tape, Doug. It's an up or down league, and right now you have to just keep in your mind that he's going to be missing some major time this year. But like DJ was saying, Kansas City is looking for Kelce in the red zone, and that's going to be a big factor. You got to wonder though, with the rookie talent coming in Kansas City, if that's going to be something that draws even more attention, because you got to be thinking that teams are going to start trying to take Kelce away and make somebody else beat them.
Right. I think now that, like you said, now that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is around, you might see the situation where you get him a couple more one-on-one situations later in the season when you have to win your fantasy matchups. So, he might get double-teamed in that red area again this year, but once, you see what they can do with the running game in the red zone, you might see a few more one-on-one opportunities for him down there.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, I mean, Mahomes came up with that running ability in the postseason last year, and that's another thing that people are going to have to account for down inside the 20.
Yeah, I think you have to worry more about him running at this point from a health concern because you don't want him taking the big hit. And that's something that scrambling quarterbacks, they do have a short shelf life. I mean, you've got players like RG3 who looked like they were going to run the league for a decade and ended up only running the league for a year.
Hey, I'm all about our $500 million quarterback staying in the pocket.
I get that. What are they going to do about offensive line, DJ? It seems like that is going to be a place where they significantly lost some talent this year.
We lost 2 guys from the Super Bowl that were starting guards, but they were able to sign a couple of guys who I'm pretty confident in. And the thing that people don't realize is the Chiefs' offensive line wasn't that great last year because if you look at the plays that Mahomes is able to make, it's extending the pocket and it's getting out and it's letting it's extending the play, and that's one thing. I know we're talking about tight ends, but Chris got me off on a tangent. I always compare.
Yeah, I was trying to pull you back.
That's what made Aaron Rodgers great, was being able to extend plays And when you think about where he's decreased in value fantasy-wise, it's come from when he's losing those wide receivers who were able to continue after the play was broken. Because before he had Jordy and they had, a couple other just scrappy wide receivers who would extend plays, and now you're set to Adams, who is the only guy who extends plays. And that's the great thing about Kansas City is everybody just keeps going because you don't know what's going to happen after Mahomes gets tossed out of the pocket.
Right. Well, that's one of the. It's one of the takeaways I had about Kyler Murray was the fact that looking at a lot of tape of him from this past year, it was that Kyler Murray, he wasn't extending the play. He was running for his life a lot. It was only about week 16 where he really became that dangerous threat where he was extending the play and finding the best option.
Right.
Before it was running for his life, trying to get it to Larry Fitzgerald no matter what.
Yeah, and he was content with getting a 4-yard running gain too a lot of times last year, as opposed to moving the pocket, resetting his feet. Now he's got, arguably one of the best wide receiver crews in the history of the game.
Right.
I mean, he's got 2 surefire Hall of Famers to throw the ball to.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's transition into running a back or quarterback then, since we're already kind of talking about. So where would you guys take Murray then? Is he's been, because of his wide receiver weapons, he's been kind of touted as somebody who's kind of on the rise for this year. But I've seen a few folks kind of, saying be cautious because he's still, just a second-year guy and he's still kind of raw in terms of the passing game. Where would you guys end up taking him?
I do have him as my QB8. As far as our rankings go, he's actually QB4 because Bonnie and Michael both have him as QB3. I get nervous, or I think, like we talked about last year, I kind of think he's just a guy, and I'm not, overly excited. Like Chris said in the thing, their offensive line's also not great. And
he's just a guy, but you have him as a QB1 in your top 8.
But after those top 2 guys, they're all just guys to me, unless their name is Drew Lock. But I just
getting the love.
I would say I'm a guy who I try to make it to the double-digit rounds before I take a quarterback. So still at QB8, he's probably a 7th or 8th rounder, a guy who's not going to make my roster.
I think there's reasons to be wary, especially like DJ said, the offensive line is troubling. A lot of what they do is a screen game, and I think that's really going to be a big benefit because Hopkins is there, and Hopkins can turn those 5-10 yard screens into something huge. Larry Fitzgerald, for all his talent, he's not going to win a foot race against somebody like Hopkins. So you got to think that those plays are going to turn into something much bigger. The thing watching Kyler that concerned me the most was there was so much throwing off of his back foot and making these jump balls. And that's going to be good for you to a certain degree when you have a player like Hopkins who can go up and get it. But at the same time, you got to worry about, are these jump balls going to turn into interceptions, or even worse for fantasy players, are they going to turn into penalties that you get nothing out of?
Right.
So these big chunks of yards are just off the board because it's a penalty and you get no points for that.
Yeah, you kind of get burned twice because you have the penalty and then you also have not that ability to get those yards.
Right. And I think people are going to see that was one of his weaknesses from last year. And I think the second year is very telling for a quarterback in the regard of the fact that now there's tape of you. Everybody knows what you're good at. Everybody knows what you're not good at, especially on this elite level. So there's going to be an extra guy just hanging back, kind of waiting for that jump ball to come up. And it's going to be trouble for Murray if he continues to do that. We need to see him continue to progress before I think we can put him as one of the elite quarterbacks in the league. I know people are just assuming that it's because he's young and he had a good year, he's Rookie of the Year, he's going to take that next step. We need to see that happen first.
And unfortunately for him, as far as having somebody sit back to try to pick off the ball, Budda Baker's on his team, so the guy's likely to catch the ball. I do think, to the benefit of Murray, guys are going to have tape on him, but Also, Cliff Kingsbury is going to figure out some more stuff going into the second season to actually help him out.
I don't know. I just don't believe in Cliff Kingsbury at all. I think the reason he's in the league is because of Mahomes, and there's no other real reason. When he had Mahomes, the best thing that he ever won was the Holiday Bowl, so I don't even know when that gets played.
That's because Mahomes couldn't beat Iowa State.
Oh, well, that's trouble for everybody. So.
All right, so we got some new faces in new places this year. So we've already alluded a little bit to Brady down in Tampa, down there. He's got some better weapons, probably the best weapons that he's had in a long time. But he's my age. He literally is. He's 43. He's in a very competitive division in that NFC South. What's kind of your expectations for him this year?
To be the third best quarterback in the NFC South.
Okay, so behind Breeze and Ryan?
Yes.
Okay.
I do, that being said, have him as QB 10, but behind Matt Ryan and Drew Brees. I think they have a lot of weapons, and I think you and I have both. I don't know if yours was lack of options, but I believe that this is the year that O.J. Howard gets back on track. I just think that people are going to be so set on stopping Gronk, stopping Godwin, stopping Evans, that there's going to be so many opportunities for O.J. Howard. And I think getting him involved is going to make Brady better because he's going to be sitting around the line of scrimmage a lot.
Yeah.
Do you really think Bruce Arians is going to run a formation of 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and a running back?
Absolutely.
Bruce Arians hates tight ends.
I understand that, but that's the way to succeed with Tom Brady.
I think that Gronk is probably looking at more of a Jason Witten type of tight end situation where he's getting used when they feel like he's going to be used best. I don't think he's going to be on the field all that much. I think the problem with O.J. Howard is that there's still a tight end ahead of him in Cameron Brate, and that's going to be a problem too. I'm not a fan of it, but O.J. Howard, just watching some of his games last year, it's hard to say that an NFL player looks disinterested, but there's times where it's an easy catch or it's something where you think he could turn it into a big gain and it's just not there.
Yeah.
And I think we would have seen it by now with O.J. Howard. And I was a big fan. I took him ridiculously high in like a first-year fantasy keeper draft because I thought that the talent was there his rookie year. He was just going to come in and own the league, and it just hasn't happened. And it may be one of those things where you just need a new destination to unlock a guy. But right now, I'm just not buying the O.J. Howard thing.
Doug, that's actually a considerable small beverage for you.
It is, yeah, because we're not on the road. I don't have to get my 52-ounce Coke or my 32-ounce coffee.
Your Steve Tappa special.
Yeah. So we're down to just a regular size bottle of Coke. Sponsor us this year.
Oh, nice.
So let's go ahead and transition. So Brady's in Tampa. That means there's a new quarterback in New England, and as of all reports, as of the last time I saw on like Thursday, that person is going to be one Mr. Cam Newton. What do we think of that relationship with Cam and his flamboyancy and his inaccurate passes but super strong arm, and Bill Belichick's buttoned down, we're going to do things my way, do your job type of offense?
I think they're tanking to get Trevor Lawrence.
Do you really think Bill Belichick would actually tank? I don't think so.
If it gets him 5 more Super Bowl rings, yeah.
I think they've made this not into a tanking season, but a throwaway season for them because by having all these guys opt out, they're going to have a ridiculous amount of cap room next year. And you're looking at the cap potentially going down next year because of the way that things are going right now, considering COVID, considering no fans in the stadium. So New England is going to be at a significant advantage when it comes to signing free agents next year because they're having so many players that are off the books this year. So having that advantage is going to mean they're going to be able to give people money when other teams aren't, and that's going to be huge for New England. And I think that you're going to see them kind of just do what they can this year, then power it up and be the team that we always know they're going to be for the next 5 years.
We've seen Belichick be flexible with his strategies in the past, but he has never had somebody with the mobility and athleticism of Cam. Obviously, Brady moves about as well as I do, maybe actually even a little worse. How much, especially with Cam's ability to get injured, how much do you think they'll actually let him run this year?
Well, Tom Brady did juke out Brian Urlacher. Let's not forget about that. So Brady, like you said, he's not a mobile player, but at the same time, I think that Belichick is really great at making the most of what he has. And Cam, just based on his rushing touchdown numbers, is a Hall of Famer. Nobody's ever done what he's been able to do. So I think the fact that Cam Newton is there, I think that Belichick's going to find a way to use his strength. And you probably can't have two playbooks. So you can't have Stidham playbook and you can't have Cam Newton playbook. But I think that if Cam Newton were to go down, they'd be just fine with Stidham. I like Stidham a lot. He's my bum sleeper that I wouldn't feel bad if you rostered him somewhere down there just to kind of see how that whole thing plays out.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, hang on, Deej. Before you go in there, I want to make a counterpoint to Chris there. You say you can't have two playbooks, but yet we've seen New England's ability, especially on the defensive side, to basically play one defense one week and another completely different defense the next week. So I would argue that if any team could have two sets of playbooks, it would be New England.
I think that makes sense. I think defense is a little bit different, though, because you're trying to take away certain players. And offense, you have to be the ones causing the action, essentially. So it's going to be hard to have Jared Stidham be out there trying to run an option play that Cam Newton would have run amazing and have that be in your playbook and then just be like, well, we're scrapping that because Cam's not available right now.
Right.
Okay. All right. What were you going to say, Deej?
I heard you say that you would consider carrying Stidham. Are you in any two quarterback leagues?
No. I'm only in one quarterback leagues. I don't have Stidham on any of my teams. I do have Drew Lock though, DJ, so...
One of the things I did in one of my two quarterback leagues where I had some extra bench space is I went and got some of the backup quarterbacks, not knowing what this season's going to look like as far as the COVID list and stuff like that. Just so I had, I won't say a handcuff because I think I only own one of the quarterbacks actually as a starter, but so I had some of the more top end backups.
And this is a year where I think familiarity is really going to benefit guys. That's why I would be buying high on a lot of the New Orleans Saints, just because it's a system they've been in for a while. It's a system that everyone knows the timing of. I think that's really going to benefit teams, whereas you're looking at teams like Chicago, where they have Nick Foles that they gave out the third-round pick for, and he may not be the starter for this team because of the fact that he's not going to be in sync with these guys, and you don't want to spend 2 or 3 weeks waiting for him to figure out the connection with everybody when you have somebody who's already in place that has a better feel for the offense.
So which backup in New Orleans would you rather own, Jameis or Taysom Hill?
I think Jameis. I think that's already played out because you saw last year when Drew Brees went down, you have Teddy Bridgewater fill right in, and he was great. Right. They didn't think about throwing it over to Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is one of the most unique players in NFL history, but that doesn't make him a quarterback.
Right.
So
Doug loves
True.
both Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston.
I hate Jameis Winston. I hate Taysom Hill as a quarterback.
I get
Teddy Bridgewater was actually the best option of those three. That's why he got to play, and the others did not.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, quick segue then over to the Bears. You touched on it, Chris, with the Foles Trubisky matchup there. So, do you think? Let's try that again. Do you think the Truth Biscuit has the inside edge because of the familiarity with the receiving core?
I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is that Ryan Pace still hasn't given up on the fact that this is a pick that's going to get him a new contract. I think he is all in on Trubisky still. And I think if you read from what he said over the past couple months, that he still thinks that he made the right pick. Even though the two quarterbacks that he took, or he could have taken there, would have been a lot better and probably would have succeeded in this system, I think he still is a Trubisky believer, and it's going to take another bad year from Trubisky to prove to him, at least, that this is the wrong pick.
Do you think they'll give him a full 16 games, or do you think at some point Nagy's going to pull the plug and say, hey, we've got Foles here, we're going to have to make the switch?
I think it's a short leash because Foles is Nagy's guy. They have that history back to Kansas City. If you look at the coaching staff that Chicago's put together, they've added a ridiculous amount of offensive coordinators this year. And there's like a run game coordinator and the coordinator to the run game and nonsense like that. So all of them have some sort of history with Foles. That's why Foles was my pick to take over the job in Chicago when DJ sent out a list to us way back at the beginning of the year about who's going where. And I thought Nick Foles was a sure thing for Chicago because all these coaches they kept hiring had some connection to Foles. And sure enough, here comes Foles to Chicago. So I think if Trubisky does falter, if there is an injury, they're going to flip it over to Foles immediately and just try to get what they can out of him.
Did you got any thoughts on the Bears quarterback situation?
I personally think that Foles should play, but I think you might see, especially without preseason, the first couple of weeks, they might run them kind of like a preseason idea where you get a little bit of Trubisky, you get a little bit of Foles, you get a little bit more of Trubisky, and just to kind of see what they do against people who are actually trying to tackle them.
Yeah.
Right. And Nagy did say, I believe it was yesterday, Friday, I don't know, I've lost track of my days, just like everybody else. He did say that they will not announce the starter before week one. That will be named basically week one, and that's it. So no indication beforehand that it's going to be one guy or the other at this
Well,
point.
and I can see them doing like what DJ said, where maybe it's like a throwback, like Broncos, Tim Tebow type of situation where you do have like, I know, you do have like a certain like number of plays that are just like, okay, these are yours. Make sure you do all of these well. And I think that might actually benefit Mitch in a certain degree because he has too many things to think about. He's just not this kind of mind that deserves to be a quarterback. He's an amazing athlete. So maybe if you run some sort of, let's go with Taysom Hill type of plays for him where you can take advantage of his speed, maybe that's something where he can succeed there.
Yeah, he does seem to be a little bit better on the move and out of the pocket. I've always kind of called him kind of a very poor man's kind of Tony Romo, who was kind of at his best when things weren't exactly going to plan. He could make stuff up. That really does seem to be when Trubisky kind of seems to play a little bit better when things are kind of a little bit off schedule.
And that's the problem is he's been injury prone though too, is when he's trying to get out and run around and make plays, that's when the injuries happen. And he's really, when he's starting to feel it a little bit, that's when the injuries have happened and it's kind of thrown him all off.
See, what I had always run into with, I won't compare Mahomes Trubisky, but early on I said, Trubisky needs more Mahomes. Mahomes needs more Trubisky because Mahomes would throw the ball downfield and instead of getting the easy 10-yard, getting the easy first down, running the ball, and vice versa, Trubisky would, try to get 12 yards to get a first down as opposed to taking a chance, throwing it down the field, especially when you're down, 10 points in the third or fourth quarter.
I think the scouting report on Trubisky just was wrong. I think that there weren't enough college games to really get a good assessment on him. And when Trubisky came out, he was considered to be the most accurate passer in the class. That's obviously not been true because he's the most wild of the three top guys that we're all still talking about.
I mean, to be completely fair, it's Mahomes was a risk. There was nothing about his scouting report that saw him being what he's been through 2 seasons. I mean, obviously we knew
loved him.
Huh?
Gruden loved him.
Yeah, we knew he had the big arm, but his accuracy wasn't great. He couldn't really, his throws on the run weren't great. And then all of a sudden he comes in and he starts, learning under Alex Smith, starts learning under Andy Reid, and he's, Brett Favre with fewer interceptions.
Yeah. I think the NFL.com scouting report got him pretty bang on. They saw him as being an elite talent. It was, can he learn the game? Mm-hmm. I think that was their one critique of him is can he adapt to being a NFL player? And I think what we're learning now more than ever before, especially considering Mahomes and Lamar, these guys not only have exceptional skill sets, but they have the coaches around them to take advantage of what these guys do well, instead of being like, you're going to run my thing my way, we're going to do it the way everybody else has been doing it forever. They've taken that extra step to make sure that the special abilities of their special players make them special teams.
That's the other thing that I think gets overlooked when people talk Trubisky, Mahomes, is the Bears didn't have that group of people around, Trubisky. So what if you take Mahomes in hindsight, and now 3 years later, people are like, man, Trubisky goes to Kansas City. He doesn't do what Mahomes has done, but he goes and he's, been a very good quarterback, and there people will be like, oh, well, the Bears should have taken Trubisky. So it's 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other.
Well, and maybe Mahomes in that first year does well enough for John Fox to keep his job, and then John Fox ends up being the Bears coach for a while, and then where would everybody be? It would just be horrible football for everyone to watch, and Patrick Mahomes being wasted.
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll take us through the first half of our show, which flew by. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a quick sponsorship break. We're going to read you some stuff from our sponsors from last season, all of who have came back on board, and we thank them very much. Then I'm going to run through some of our latest stuff from the site to mention, to talk about kind of our new writers, gives folks a chance to go out there and kind of take a look and see their work. And then on the backside of the break, then we'll talk running backs and wide receivers and rookies. So with that said, I'll jump in here. We'll go ahead and take a look at that, and then we'll see you guys on the other side. Kavanaugh's Hilltop. Sunday is the best day at Kavanaugh's Hilltop Bar and Grill in Rock Island. You can now enjoy a limited brunch menu while listening to your favorite jamokes talk about fantasy football. And let me tell you, there's nothing better than Kavanaugh's Brunch Burger, which has a sizzling all-beef patty topped with an egg and hash browns and served with a side of hand-cut fries. Stick around after the show and grab one of their 250 tall boys or a Bloody Mary while checking out all the action from every game around the league and keeping up with your fantasy studs on one of their numerous screens with NFL Sunday Ticket. That's Kavanaugh's Hilltop Bar and Grill, 1228 30th Street in Rock Island, home of For Fantasy's Sake. At least in 2019. Clint's Draft House Pizza and Grill. Located in the Belgium neighborhood of 7th Street in Moline, Clint's Draft House Pizza and Grill is home to some of the Quad City's best food and drink specials. On Sunday, there's no better place than Clint's. Is serving up 75-cent wings and $4 Bloody Marys all day. And your favorite team is playing in those out-of-market games? You'll never miss a second of that action on one of their 10 screens with NFL Sunday Ticket. And after you've had your wing and bloody fix, finish your football watching experience with one of their famous Quad City style pizzas. And folks, they know pizzas. They've been spinning Quad City style pies for the last 22 years. So make Clint's part of your Sunday football routine. Clint's Draft House Pizza and Grill, 7th Street in Moline. Durham Remodeling. Durham Remodeling has been serving the Quad Cities area since 1973. With nearly 50 years of excellence on their track record, you'll see why it's so easy to trust their experts when it comes to all your home improvement projects. Durham Remodeling's work is 100% guaranteed, and you can rest assured that you're getting the best service around. So call 309-786-6715 for all your roofing, siding, flooring, windows, and painting needs. That's Durham Remodeling, 309-786-6715. Van's Pizza Pub and Grill. Football season is already a quarter of the way gone. Actually, it's about to start all over again. And if you spend Sundays anywhere watching football other than Van's Pizza Pub and Grill, you've been doing it wrong. Van's Pizza Pub and Grill, 3333 North Harrison Street in Davenport, is the best place to catch all of your favorite games this season. You've still got time to make it a brand new routine with a brand new season just starting. Start your meal off with their famous McGuire's Original Nachos or Bready Nuggets, then ask about one of their original QC-style pizzas. Or be your own offensive coordinator and call an audible and create your own. The Vans crew will be sure to have your play call hits pay dirt every time. Vans Pizza Pub and Grill, 3333 North Harrison Street in Davenport. Come get served. Rock River Fitness is located at 3416 Blackhawk Road in Rock Island and offers a wide variety of classes, starting as low as $7 per class and just $10 for specialty classes. With classes that include different yoga, Zumba, cardio, fusion, and strength training, Rock River Fitness has a little something for everyone and at a crazy affordable rate. Find them on Facebook, the MindBody app, or visit rockriverfitness.com and start planning your next fitness class. Rock River Fitness, where fitness is fun.
Also want to give a shout out to the Yard Barbers. You can find their advertisement on the bottom of the fantasy baseball articles. The guy who operates that's been awesome. He agreed to sponsor fantasy baseball just before all the Corona crap, and instead of saying, "Hey, since I'm not getting any sponsorship, can I get my money back or whatever?" He's like, "Hey, thanks for the opportunity," and we worked together to figure out what we were going to be able to do. And so, if you go to forfantasysakeqc.com, their logo's right there up front with the Clint's logo, and they're still on the bottom of every single fantasy baseball column that Chris publishes.
We also want to thank the fans, the people who are tuning in to watch us say silly things, and the people who are reading our articles right now, because the fan support has been nothing short of amazing, because we don't pay to promote the show or anything like that. So to have the reception, especially with all our new writers doing such an amazing job, to have the people out there that are reading these articles and giving us these clicks, just thank you so much. It's been incredible. Yeah,
the hope is once we get off and running, we've been doing a great job with nothing to write about. I mean, people have thrown things up there and everybody's reading them, and a lot of stuff's sticking. And once we have actual real stuff to write about, I just expect that the quality of the work's going to go up even higher.
Yes. So let's highlight some of that work from our site with our brand new folks that we've got going. If you go to the fantasy football website or fantasy football section on our brand new site, the first story that you're actually going to see up there is an around the league roundup from Michael Sicoli, where he's been doing that every week. He does a great job. He actually goes out, he gets kind of all little chunks and tidbits and kind of gets you up to date about what's been going on, which is really great, because this time of year, especially in this season where everything's kind of cut off, I feel like the only teams that I know anything that's going on about them are the Bears, which I follow, and then the Rams and the Chargers from Hard Knocks. I have no idea what's going on with the other 29 teams in the league. So Michael's updates are really kind of helping me keep track of what's going on throughout the league.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard this year because you depend on those preseason games to give you a little bit of knowledge about what's going on in camp, and we don't have those right now.
I think the other disadvantage for me is you really underestimate how little time you have for scrolling through Twitter when you have a 1-year-old child.
Any child, essentially. Or if they're old like mine, you can just throw them out of the house and you have plenty of time.
There you go.
We also did fantasy outlooks for every single division. Every single one of us took a different division, and we went through all of those. So after Michael's roundup, the next couple of articles that you're going to find up there, one is from Linda with the AFC West outlook, and then Steele did the NFC West, and then after that was the NFC North. That was written by Andrew McKay, and then the AFC South. Do you remember who did the AFC South? Oh, okay, yeah. So
lots of hot takes. Only member of the industry on Leonard Fournette.
Okay, so I would not read the AFC South one because that guy's unqualified. I would read the NFC South because that guy is amazing. The guy that wrote that after being off for a year, not writing anything, and then who did? Let's see, who did? And then Michael did the AFC Central.
That's the North, bud.
North. I'm sorry, AFC North. I'm an old guy. I'm still in that. And then
They're central to me.
And then Bonnie did the NFC East, and then AFC East was done by Brendan. So if that's kind of on the first page of all of our of the fantasy football page of our new site. So just there, that's all stuff that's went up here in the last week. Brand new information. So that's a really great resource to kind of come look. We don't have a paywall up on our site. So all this information is free. We tweet them all out. You can follow us. You can find all this information. Like I said, the stuff's really, really great. Our new writers have just been killing it. If we get rid of this DJ guy, we might actually have something here. So
the thing is too is when you look at each of those articles, each of them has a pretty in-depth look at 16 guys. So you're not – a lot of places you'll click on something, and that's why it was good that we could break them up, is a lot of other places you might click on something like that and you get maybe 2 players per team. But we did 4 players per team. We did a guy we expect to, who we're taking, a guy we're not taking, a sleeper, and a bust. So you got per division 16 guys who you got kind of a look at, and we gave you our opinion. Obviously, I believe fantasy football is one of those things where you kind of form a lot of your own opinions. We can give you the resources, but you kind of have to make decisions on your own.
Right. We give you the starting point, and then you guys can make those decisions going on from the starting points that we give you. But yeah, so that is our brand new site. That is forfantasysakeqc.com. You can hit that up whenever you like. And like I mentioned at the start of the show, there is a brand new link that will allow you to submit your questions this year. So if you do want to submit questions, you can do that. That'll get emailed directly to us as well, along with a list of all the charities that we do sponsor, that we sponsored last year and that we will continue to sponsor this year going forward as well. We want to talk about the staff league. So you're going to hear us talk about our staff league this year. We're going to have a new draft starting here in about an hour, or here in a little bit. All the staff will be participating in that, along with 4 community members.
Chris is actually on the clock.
Get out! Yeah. Don't screw this up, man.
Number 1 pick was Christian McCaffrey, and number 2 pick was Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, wow. Well, I think I know who I'm going with here.
All right.
That's probably got to be Lamar, right?
It's got to be whoever you want it to be.
Whoever I want it to be. Well, I know who I want it to be.
All right.
Okay.
Well, but yeah, it's exciting, and we'll be posting an article after the end of each round, just kind of justifying our terrible picks and telling everybody why we chose to do something similar to that.
I'm just going to say how much DJ's picks sucked every round. Since he's
I'm
picking
okay
right
with that.
Sure.
Oh, no. I changed my mind. I saw that Saquon Barkley name, and I just couldn't go past that. So that's an easy one for me.
Yeah. All right. So you'll hear us talk about that throughout the season. We are playing that on Sleeper this year, giving that a try. That is an app-based format that we're giving that a roll this year.
I wasn't excited about that when you guys sent me the link, but I really like the layout of it, and I think that the app does an excellent job.
Yeah, I'm for sure a fan of it. I actually had moved one of my leagues over to that website and then logged on to it a couple weeks ago and completely forgot how to use it. So I moved it somewhere else. But
their phone app is amazing.
Yeah,
their iPad
for
app
sure.
needs a little work. But,
Yeah, I agree.
But we're very happy to do that on there this year. All right, so let's get back into the nitty gritty of the show. Yes. Before we go, yes,
one
sir?
more. We are going to, Doug. You and I are going to have to work on this. This is a surprise to you too, but we're actually going to have a Pigskin Pick'em source on there. So basically, we're going to add a link. You're going to be able to go to a sheet, pick your guy. Pick your teams. I'm working on a weekly sponsor for that currently, so like a $25 a week. That's not guaranteed as of right now, but I'm working on trying to get a sponsor for that to give each week's winner. So a little bit of yum yum, as Nate would say.
Or you get your name said on air.
That'll
even
definitely
better
happen.
prize.
We will definitely say your name on air. Probably if you
There you
finish
go.
in last two, we'll probably berate you. So
Yeah.
Alrighty, so with that said, let's talk running backs, as those are a big thing. So I want to talk, DJ, I'm going to put this floor right on you because this is your guy. I had never even heard of the CEH dude until like a few weeks ago. I know he was drafted in the first round, I guess, but I guess it never really kind of registered that the Chiefs took a running back in the first round. And then at some point, some of my fantasy football friends were like, his price has gotten like out of control. And I'm like, who even is this guy? So DJ, tell me, who the heck is this guy who only has initials?
well, I mean, he does have a name, but I mean, he was good at LSU. He was one of the reasons that they won the national championship.
Joe Burrow.
Huh? Well, no, Joe Burrow is the reason. But I mean, it's a position where the Chiefs haven't had a guy since Hunt to kind of take the running back touches. And
Well, that was such a long time ago.
yeah, well, I mean,
It was like, what,
In
2018?
fantasy, yeah. In fantasy, it feels like forever.
it does. And so last year it was kind of a who's your guy? People were in on Darwin Thompson to begin the season, and then it kind of was Damian Williams, but they didn't really until the postseason like count on Damian Williams to be the guy, and then he opts out, and so Clyde Edwards-Helaire is getting all of the touches with the first team, and so you've got to assume he's going to get at least 80% of the running back snaps with a little bit of Darrell Williams and Darwin Thompson mixing in. But like Chris said, when we were talking about tight ends, he's going to get some of those red area touches that, used to be passes to Kelsey and used to, and later in the season were some of the option runs with Mahomes. And he's a guy that I'm really excited about. And fantasy-wise, I think he's a top 12 running back option and a guy I would take in the first couple of rounds.
I would worry just because Kansas City looks like they're willing to continue to do some sort of stable and outside of maybe like Baltimore, I don't know that the stable really works. It's good to have a good option like that, especially when it's a young, like live player like you're talking about. But it's something where if there's going to be multiple guys getting multiple touches, how much do you want to depend on spending a first round pick or a second round pick on somebody that might lose time to somebody else or might end up ceding time or having somebody scavenge touchdowns off of them?
I just have significant belief that as long as he can protect Mahomes, he's gonna play. He's gonna be on the field for
Okay.
a lot of the downs because that's why Damian Williams played as much as he did last year, is because Darrell Williams and Darwin Thompson didn't show that they could, play that extra blocker. Because, unless they're playing two tight end sets, you don't often have Kelsey stick it into block. He's running routes, and so you're literally setting Mahomes with five offensive linemen and the running back to block for him. So I think if CEH can actually block, he's gonna see the field quite often.
I can see that.
All right. So speaking of new faces in new places, what about local guy David Johnson down in Houston? What do we think of his kind of prospects down there, and where would you feel comfortable taking him?
I know Andrew was pretty low on him. He had a story about guys he's cautionary about, but I think if he can stay healthy, and that's really been his bugaboo, is staying on the field. And I think that in that offense, even though their line is also trash, so he's going from a trash offensive line to another trash offensive line, but they actually have a guy we've all heard of playing offensive line, whose name escapes me as at this point. The guy who came from the Dolphins with the weed mask.
Laramie Tunsil.
Laramie Tunsil. He's playing left tackle, and I think, like I said when I was writing my preview on the AFC South, is they have those targets that are voided from Carlos Hyde and from DeAndre Hopkins that they're going to have to fill. And David Johnson's a very able pass-catching back.
Yeah, watching a lot of Arizona Cardinals stuff to kind of get a read on Murray, I really came away impressed with what David Johnson was able to do. I think that there is a timetable on him, though. I think you should wait and take a flyer on him instead of making him a guy you're depending on.
Right.
If you get a surprise out of him, that's good, but I wouldn't be wanting to depend on him because of the injury history, like you're saying. But it looks like there's a lot of tread on those tires already just from the speed in which he plays. But like you said, the hands play, and he still has the ability to hit the hole and make the most of those yards. It's just he's not going to run away from anybody.
So would you take him as your first running back, or would you only take him as your second?
I might even wait, and he might be my third running back if I'm really aggressive.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah, I have him as RB21, so a late RB2. But I have him ranked around guys like Melvin Gordon, Jonathan Taylor, David Montgomery, Le'Veon Bell, all guys who I kind of see as low floor or high floor, low ceiling guys. So guys that you kind of expect to get you, a consistent amount of points, but it's going to be rare that they have the 120 yards rushing, 5 catches, 3 touchdown days, or 2 touchdown days.
And that's around the area where you're starting to throw darts anyway, is you're just trying to take a shot at a guy you think could end up being a flex or maybe even the best, an RB2 of some kind. So it makes sense to try and have him around that area because he does have the pedigree of being a player who could break out all of a sudden, but he has to break out of the injuries, which have probably just sent him on the downhill the rest of his career.
I try to stay away from using this phrase with guys who you aren't taking in the first 5 rounds, but if he could go back to even 3/4 of what he was early on, he could be a guy that you take in the 7th to 10th round range that could win the league for you if he was able to be a guy who rushes for 1,200 yards, catches 60 passes,
Yeah.
What about that Denver backfield? They've got a couple of options now. People seem to think that Melvin Gordon is going to take them all, but there's a lot of smoke out of Denver that Philip Lindsay is still going to have a pretty significant role.
Yeah, Linda made a really good point. She did I think her very first article for us was why Philip Lindsay could still be the RB1 in Denver. And he's been a guy who, through 2 years, has been really good with the chip on his shoulder. Undrafted rookie, and he blew up. And then people have just not expected much out of him his entire life. And, just being unrecruited, goes to a local college, then gets undrafted, sticks with Denver. Again, common theme, really crappy offensive line. And so you're going to need a guy who finds the holes that aren't there. And I mean, both of those guys are that guy. But, what's to say they don't use them both, as I would say I would want them both as RB 3-4 area. But if we're throwing around that Cleveland could have 2 guys finish in the top 15 at running back, why can't Denver do that?
Yeah. I think that's because Denver has a lot of weapons. You look at how they've overhauled that wide receiving core, and they've really added. You gotta imagine that Noah Fant is going to take another step forward, because he's looking like he has a chance to be named among guys like Kelsey and Kittle at some point in his career, just based off of his first year. Tight ends don't do that in their first year, and Fant has managed to do that. It's all going to depend on Locke, I think, to take that next step to find out if this is going to be more than just a running team. But I like Lindsay because speed plays, and he's got the speed. So I know Melvin Gordon isn't any slouch when it comes to foot race there, but at the same time, I think Philip Lindsay could outrun anybody in the league.
Right.
Okay. Washington's backfield, that's a murky mess. Are we just avoiding that altogether?
You have no idea. So this is what's going to happen is people are going to draft Antonio Gibson, people are going to draft Bryce Love, and Adrian Peterson's going to run for 1,400 yards.
Probably.
I wouldn't put that past him at this point, but hey, you got to think that at a certain point they're going to want somebody on the field who can catch a ball too.
Right,
so
right.
You got to have somebody in that system. There's too many question marks on that entire offense all around. As a Terry McLaurin owner,
Scary Terry.
I love Scary Terry, but you just don't know what you're going to be getting out of that offense any single week, and I don't know that there's any reason to try and get something out of that other than to take a late round flyer on a guy that you think might be able to do some work for you and maybe get some like touchdowns here and there. But I just don't like the whole system.
Right.
All right. Let's go rapid fire with some of these running backs, just because I want to see kind of where you guys have them. Let's start with Todd Gurley. Where would you take Todd Gurley?
I have him in that same range with David Johnson, where I think he's my RB16. So I would say 5 to 7, around 5 to 7 range.
I think this is probably going to be an elite year for Gurley. It's something to prove. It's a new place. He's going to be on turf, so that might help him be just a step faster. So you got to think that if Gurley's going to have another big year that launches people to win fantasy championships, this is going to be the year. I wouldn't put much stock in it happening again next year, but if you want to pick one year where he's going to beat the odds, I would say this year is the year.
What about
that?
What about Cam Akers out in Los Angeles for the Rams?
I just think they have, like Denver, like Cleveland, a lot of mouths to feed, and you don't really know who's going to be that guy to step forward. And then when you think of Henderson and Malcolm Brown, like Chris said when he was talking earlier about quarterbacks, they know the system. They've been in the system, as opposed to where Akers is brand new. He's going to have no live reps outside of scrimmages, so you just kind of wonder early on how much they're going to trust him. And when you can't trust a guy early on, it's hard to put a lot of stock in him that he's going to figure it out, late in the year when you need him.
Yeah, fantasy value comes down to how many touches you're going to get, and if Cam Akers isn't getting touches early on in those first few weeks, it feels like it's going to be something that's not going to get you any value. You want some value out of that position. I think more than anything, I think Gurley gets a lot of blame for having slowed down, especially with his knees and the problems with his knees. That offensive line did him no favors whatsoever. That offensive line is bad, and they haven't gotten any better.
Is there an offensive line in the NFL we like? Because I've not heard any good things about offensive lines thus far.
Cowboys are still pretty good.
Yeah. Let's see. Kansas City, bad offensive line. Houston, bad offensive line. Denver, bad offensive line.
Yeah.
Arizona, bad offensive line. Rams, bad offensive line.
Yeah. All right. So, Deej, you dissed on Derrick Henry in your AFC South article.
I won't say I dissed him. I'm just not willing to spend. I don't want to take him in the first round, and that's what it's going to cost to get Derrick Henry. There's backs that I like better than Derrick Henry.
No, I get it. To a certain degree, I'm not a full-fledged believer. I think he's a great player. There's a lot of tread on those tires because he got used up a lot in college. He got used up a lot in high school, even going back that far.
Right.
So this is a guy who is starting to get up there, and I was kind of questionable as to whether or not they should give him a contract that is going to make him paid like one of these elite running backs, because you can get a guy. And I think the NFL has proven that over the last few years. There are guys like Philip Lindsay who come out of nowhere and we just plug them in and they're good. And Todd Gurley is an elite player who chugged that team all the way to the playoffs, but how much do you want to bet on a running back who's going to be a run-to-contact guy surviving a long time in the NFL, especially when he's been taking big hits his entire career?
So this is the weird thing where rankings in real life don't really meet each other, because I think when you're making rankings, you're thinking all things being equal, this is what's going to happen. But I have Derrick Henry, I have him ranked ahead of Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon. All three of those guys available, I'm taking Derrick Henry last of those three guys. Even though I have him ahead of my rankings, I'm saying all things being equal, but I don't see Derrick Henry, one, playing 16 games, or two, I just don't see him running for 110 yards a game this year like he did in previous years.
I get it.
All right. You got an either-or situation for you here. Either Ronald Jones from Tampa Bay, or you think that's bad, or Le'Veon Bell from the Jets.
Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, the talent's there.
Really? Because according from Michael's articles this last couple of weeks, he's not been looking good. They're using the word slow, which is never what you want to hear for your running back.
Yeah. Well, you got to think about how motivated he is at this point. I don't think he's always been a patient back. That's been his thing. Is he's got the vision and the patience to make things work. It's being able to kick it into that second gear, and maybe he's losing that ability to just shift right into fourth gear, and that's going to be the real problem. I think I would trust Le'Veon because there's so many things that he does well.
I kind of get the idea Le'Veon Bell is going to be even if he looks slow, he's going to be the lead back.
Fine at game time.
Huh?
Fine at game time.
Yeah, well, not only that, but he's going to be the lead back for the majority of the season, and I don't know that we can say that about Ronald Jones at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I took us a little further than what I wanted to on the running backs, but that's totally fine. All right, wide receivers. We talked a little bit about some of these guys, but let's start with Nuke in Arizona. In that offense, but with Kyler Murray, how do you feel about Nuke this year?
Yeah, I think you gotta love what he's able to do. It's going to be one of those things where I think it's going to depend a lot on Murray, but I love his role there. I think it's going to work out well for him. I think it's a really good landing spot for him. Of all the places he could have been traded, I think this is probably the best fit for him because it takes a lot of pressure off of Larry on the other side. And Larry's been good over the past 5 years of making sure he gets his touches. So people are going to have to really try to take one of those guys away. And when they do, it's going to be the other guy's turn to shine. I even would feel pretty good about Christian Kirk this year, because I think that he has shown, especially taking a big step last year, that he's ready to be not considered an elite wide receiver, but one of those guys that can just really get you a lot of points in PPR and turn it into some yards too. I don't think it's going to be touchdowns, but yards and touches, I think he's going to see a big uptick there.
Yeah, I have Nuck as my number 2 wide receiver.
Luke.
Again, it's like an all things being equal type deal where I think that you might see guys that I have ranked below him like Tyreek, Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, pass him up at some points in the season. But I still think even though I'm not a huge fan of Murray, I think he would still be in line for at least like 85 to 90 catches and over 1,000 yards, and he's gonna get touchdowns because somehow, I mean, even watching Houston games where they didn't have a ton of guys, DeAndre Hopkins seems to catch a ton of touchdowns with nobody around him, where defenses just kind of forget about him because he just stops and goes. Like he just finds a way to be wide open and catch touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about his replacement with Houston in Brandon Cooks?
I like Brandon Cooks this year. I think he could be a solid wide receiver too in the year. Like Watson's gonna find a way to get the ball to his number 1 guy, and even if that means forcing the ball, as long as Watson's on the field, Cooks is gonna produce.
I don't know. Watson gets hit an awful lot because
That's
Bill
why
O'Brien.
that's why I emphasize as long as he stays on the field.
Well, I agree with that. I think it's going to be really. I think that Cooks isn't the name that we think he is anymore. It feels like he's still considered to be this elite guy when last year he disappeared for a long stretch, and I didn't really see that coming.
See,
He got passed up by guys that like Kupp and others, but I don't know if that's a product of the system or if that's him taking a step back.
And I think that is a product of the system because, like, outside of Bob Forrest in the last, 3 years, nobody's really gotten...
He means Robert Woods.
I do mean Robert Woods. Nobody's really gotten, like Watkins would disappear, and then he goes to Kansas City and he blows back up. And, Kupp has had his games where he disappeared, and then he would show up one week and catch 3 passes for 140 yards and 2 scores. Like, I just think that it's a product of the system. Like, some guy's going to eat, and then the other guys aren't, like Woods is going to be consistent, and then somebody else is going to be awesome.
Get it to the guy who's open.
Huh?
Get it to the guy who's open.
Right. And then yeah. You saw that with their tight end play last year, too, with Higbee and Everett. Yeah. I mean, both of those guys, like Higbee had more games where he did well, but, you could see Everett had, games where he was the open guy that Goff was tossing it to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. I was going to talk Broncos. We've talked enough Broncos with those, but I think those two are actually an interesting match. But I want to talk, because we haven't talked about Green Bay at all. So we know Devontae Adams is the number 1 guy. But I believe it was Bonnie that had written
nope, that's
something.
Linda.
It was Linda. She wrote that too, about their pick there at who she thought that should be there at number 2 with MVS. What is you guys' kind of feelings about who's going to emerge as the second wide receiver there?
Aaron Jones.
I still don't love any of that wide receiving core.
No.
So outside of Devontae Adams, I really don't have like an idea of who that next guy is going to be. And I think that they're kind of planning for the future. If you look at the draft they had this year, it's more about getting the Love system in place and getting A.J. Dillon ready to be this main back. Yeah.
I think that I have a buddy who's from Green Bay, so we talk a lot about the Packers, and I think that I'm not willing to risk my reputation. I'm not willing to risk a fantasy league out of it, but I think you could see Equanimous St. Brown make that Devontae Adams type leap finally. And I think Adams was very underrated early on in his career because he just couldn't catch. and now he's found a way to catch. And and guys tend to make that leap somehow in Green Bay where they're nothing and then they're all of a sudden a guy. And I think you could see that at a ESB is he could make that leap, hi doggy, and be that number 2 receiver at Green Bay.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a unique season because there's going to be tension in Green Bay just from the outset. But I don't know. It worked for him last year. There was the tension there with new coaches and them being like, hey, I'm Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to call audibles if I want to call audibles. And then the pushback being, we're not going to do audibles. So there was tension from the start. It got him almost the number 1 seed in the NFC. So maybe it'll work out again. I don't see it happening, but we'll see.
Chris, to pivot to fantasy baseball for 2 seconds, what do you think about Jose Martinez on the Chicago Cubs?
As a guy, that's fine.
We don't need a first baseman. We needed relief pitching. This is a stupid move.
Well, if
he hits,
if they move Hayward over to center, Almora's been having a really hard time this year. So if you get Hayward over in center, and that takes away from his elite ability in a corner outfield spot, but he's a very good center fielder. I could see that being a move that makes sense as you just want to add another bat. Get him in there. You could DH him too.
Yeah, you could put him in the lineup every day.
Yeah, I don't even think about DHs when it comes to the NL, but still, yeah, you got that opportunity for him.
He's a guy. If I would have known, if the Cardinals would have known he was going to be the DH was going to be an option this year, that I think they would have held on to him.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. He's a good bat.
All right, so jumping back over to football real quick. Stephon Diggs in Buffalo.
If he can run under the passes that Josh Allen throws, I think he can be a top. I think I have him in my top 15 wide receivers. I'm a big Stephon Diggs fan. He's fast and he's with a quarterback who can throw the ball deep.
Yeah, I think that Diggs is going to be a player that really it's dependent on what Josh Allen does. You think that you believe in Josh Allen is vote of confidence for Diggs. But if you don't believe in Josh Allen, which I'm kind of really on the fence about that, I think
that's
you got
my position, Chris.
See what happens. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's a good running quarterback, but you got to find out if he's going to be more than that. And I think that running game is going to still be the primary threat of that offense. So where does Diggs get his touches? How is he going to get used? That's one of those things that a preseason game, just to kind of try and figure out if that connection is there, would have been helpful. But we're going to have to wait until the regular season to find that out now.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if they played one regular or one preseason game, they would have only, if they would have even played, it would have only been one series. They probably wouldn't even targeted him. So
right.
So that wouldn't have told us too much anyway. So we still would have been kind of in the dark.
He'll find a way to fight with Josh Allen like he did Kirk Cousins, but.
Well, and Josh Allen is probably more willing to give in because he's a younger guy who has less sway in the league than Cousins does. So Josh Allen will probably get into trouble just trying to fulfill the wishes of Diggs. But hey, if you're a Diggs owner, that's okay.
Right.
All right. Let's see who else do we want to chat about. As I just kind of scroll up and down the NFL page here and see in terms of wide receivers. Do you guys have anybody really kind of interesting for you in terms of wide receivers? Who's your sleepers this year? Who do you want as a sleeper in the wide receivers?
I mean, I like, obviously, as I said before, I'm a big fan of what Brandon Cooks can bring to the table in Houston. Chris had an interesting sleeper pick with Tyler Lockett. Is everybody wants to talk about DK Metcalf. Everybody wants to rank DK Metcalf up there. And Tyler Lockett's just been Mr. Consistency in his career to where you can slot him in your lineup every week and know he's going to get you, 14 to 20 points every single week.
Right. Yeah, there was only 4 weeks last year where he didn't get you probably double-digit points. And that's something that is really underrated right now is I think people are just assuming that DK Metcalf's going to become the next huge thing because we want him to be.
Right.
And
Well, he is a huge thing, but
well, he's huge, but we'll see if it's anything other than just speed this year. I think people are really going to try and like jam him and try and make him work the middle of the field instead of just running straight ahead.
speaking of speed, I'm pretty high on Devontae Parker, as I just think. I mean, he was really good last year, matched up with Stephon Gilmore, and I think that they were able to scheme him into situations where he could get open and be what they drafted him to be, a guy who can extend the field and extend plays and make things happen for an offense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, so as we head into the last couple of minutes of the show today, let's talk rookies. Are there any rookies that you are particularly high on? Anybody that you'd be looking at drafting outside of CEH? Obviously, he's going to be somebody who's going to go very highly. Anybody else really kind of ring your bell this year?
Yeah, looking at the Rams, Van Johnson is somebody that really made sense to me because he's a guy who's probably going to get time at the slot. The only player he has to beat out to get there is Josh Reynolds, and his the ADP on Van Johnson is like a 300 or something.
Yeah.
So that's somebody who's way down the depth chart that you could probably not even like spend a pick on in your draft. Just like add him to your watch list and just see how that battle plays out, because Josh Reynolds has had his time to try and like become a consistent contributor in that Rams offense, and it hasn't happened yet.
He's on that roster to be a special team player. I'm a big fan of Brian Edwards, the receiver out of Oakland or Las Vegas, as everything that comes out of camp says he could even be their number one receiver this year. So he could play that X position and just make things happen. I mean, you don't really know outside of Tyrell Williams anything about anybody in Las Vegas. They drafted I'm blanking out of Alabama, not Judy, the other one.
Ruggs.
Yeah, they drafted Ruggs. They have Hunter Renfrow, but I mean, Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I look for Edwards to kind of be a guy, again, maybe not draft him, but put him on your watch list and maybe be the first guy to get to him on waivers.
Mm-hmm.
Judy's a guy that I think has a lot of interest to me. I think he actually has more talent than Sutton. I think if Drew Lock is anywhere close to decent, I think that Judy could be in for a big year.
Yeah, and Doug loves Cortland Sutton.
I love him.
Isn't he a Penn State guy?
No, he went for the SMU.
Oh,
yeah, I think Doug's right.
I think you're right.
Of course, Doug's right. Doug's always right, but nobody listens to him.
I like Chenault. Chenault, I think, is going to be one of those players that is flying under the radar because this wide receiving class is so talented. But I think he's one of those guys that years from now we're going to look back and be like, I can't believe that we slept on that guy.
I also cannot believe it's not butter.
Yeah, don't believe it.
All right. As I scroll down kind of through the NFL site here, looking at teams we haven't talked about, just to try and make sure that we've touched on everybody. Anybody from Carolina you want? DJ Moore obviously is probably the top choice.
Well, CMC
and McCaffrey, McCaffrey and DJ Moore.
Ian Thomas.
I don't buy it. I think he's had that opportunity several times when Greg Olson's been injured, because Greg Olson's injured so often, that we've seen that he's had a chance to take the light and be that guy who can prove that he's a really good tight end, and we haven't seen him put up the numbers consistently enough to do it.
Yeah.
Greg Olson has called more games than he's played in the last
Chris,
year.
this is rapid fire, and you don't have to explain things. Just say no.
Okay. Nope.
Bengals. Anybody from the Bengals interest you? Tyler Boyd, Boyd and Mixon. Those are the two that we want.
Yeah.
Yep. Maybe Burrow.
Would you really roll the dice on Burrow?
Yeah.
Rapid fire, dog.
Fine. Whatever. Browns. They're Browns. We don't talk. I feel like they're loaded.
They are.
Like, I'd be okay with a good chunk of that offense.
Not Austin Hooper.
No, not any of the tight ends, but Landry, but Landry, OBJ, Chubb, and Baker, I'm all good with.
Yep.
We may have been a year early on the Browns because everybody wanted to proclaim how good they were going to be last year, and they were coached by an idiot. So at least this year they have a chance.
Yep.
Yes. Colts. Phillip Rivers in town. What does that do?
T.Y. Hilton still.
Yeah, it's a boost to the TY train, and that's about it.
Yep.
Okay. Jacksonville. Dumpster fire?
Yep. Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, I was going to say Leonard Fournette's probably the only guy you're really banking on there of becoming something greater.
Okay. You didn't touch on the Vikings at all, surprisingly. So Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, and then
Irv Smith maybe late.
yeah.
I think Dalvin Cook's just injured too much, and Thielen, his star has really fallen the last year or so. 2 years ago, he was great. Last year, it just wasn't consistent enough.
With Cook
Yeah,
not,
because Diggs was the better player, but they still insisted on throwing to Thielen.
with Cook not getting that extension, I'm worried that if he gets one of those little soft tissue things, he'll shut it down.
Could be.
Saints are the usual suspects there. No, nothing crazy. Giants, Barkley, and Danny.
Tate.
What's his face?
Danny Dimes.
Danny
I
Dimes.
refuse to say
Yeah,
that.
Daniel
I refuse
Jones.
to say that. Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
yes.
Chris, you missed it last year. One of my buddies at work gave me the nickname Donnie Dimes, and I got just dragged for it on the show.
It was disgusting. Philly. Who do you want out of Philly?
Miles Sanders.
Hey, maybe a sleeper could be Jalen Hurt. I mean, it's something where people are forgetting that he's there, but Carson Wentz is always injured, so let's roll dice on that.
And Wentz hurt sounds like a headline, so.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
And we talked about Seattle. Pittsburgh. We surprisingly didn't talk about Pittsburgh either. Anything?
Juju for the consistency. Connor, if I can get him at a bargain.
Yeah, I would say Connor probably is a good sleeper for people because his stock is really down right now, but I think that consistency is there, and he can get back to that number one status.
Where would you take Rapist Burger?
Pass.
Yeah, that's me too. Alrighty. Well, boys, it is 11:31. We made it all the way through to the end.
That was
only
quick.
some minor technical. Yeah, it was fast. There were only some minor technical difficulties.
Yeah, I think I got that figured out. That's why they don't hire me to do the technology anyway.
This is why I handle the tech side usually. But my computer died thanks to a hurricane in Iowa.
Derecho.
So
He's a great wide receiver. I'd take him in the top 10.
exactly. All kinds of yards after the catch.
Are we back next week, or are we off till week 1?
So we are off till week 1. So we will not be here next Sunday. We will be back the week after that, back on the air at 10 again, if I can drag my butt out of bed, because that's early for me on a Sunday.
You can't even run to Casey's and get a giant soda and a slice of pizza anymore.
No, but I have at my new place there. I'm behind Domino's, and I'm across the street from the best breakfast place in the Quad Cities. We should reach out to them and see if they're willing to sponsor us too, because it's amazing.
Pretty sure QC Pancake House is in Rock Island.
Pretty sure Jimmy's is the best place in the Quad Cities.
I actually know the owner, so maybe I could reach out.
All right. So either way, so we will be back on the air week 1. We will take you through the Thursday night game. What is the Thursday night game this year? It's Kansas City who?
Houston.
Okay.
I will be having entertainment purposes monies on that. Entertainment purposes only.
Right. Okay. So we'll talk about that game. We'll make fun of DJ after they lose by 2 touchdowns, and then we'll get you all set up for week 1. Until that point, make sure that you, like I said before, you're checking out the brand new site, forfantasysakeqc.com. Make sure you're following us on Facebook at forfantasysakeqc and on
no QC in the Facebook, Doug, just for fantasy sake.
Oh, geez. Okay. And then I can't keep all this straight. And then make sure that you are following us on Twitter and Instagram at FFSQC. Until next week, we will see you all then. Bye-bye.